In the run-up to the 2024 European Parliament elections, Brusselsreport.eu has presented its ranking of members of European Parliament for the period of 2019 to 2024. I'm here with Peter Klebpe, Editor-in-Chief for Riks Europe, but you're also Editor-in-Chief for Brussels Report, correct?
That's correct.
So tell the viewers about this ranking. What is it based on?
So basically this is a ranking of members of European Parliament, ranking them according to how they have voted over the last 5 years. So broadly there are two categories. On the one hand there's the sort of the non-ideological category, and on the other hand there's the ideological category. The non-ideological category is about votes related to financial transparency, accountability. It relates to how MEPs vote on, the spending of the European Union. If they are critical towards that spending, do they approve the spending when there are clear problems with it, when the level of errors is way too high, or do they vote against the so-called discharge? Do they vote in favor of making it mandatory for MEPs, members of European Parliament, to publish how they spent the €5,000 per month that they receive on top of their €8,000 salary? This money is supposed to be used for admin. Or do they vote in favor of keeping this all very secretive? So this, I think, is very interesting to present to voters then how their elected representatives behave. On the other hand, as I mentioned, there is the ideological ranking. The ideological ranking relates to how MEPs vote on topics related to centralization of the EU. Are they in favor or are they against? In favor of civil liberties, for example, the COVID vaccine pass. If you vote, in favor of that, then obviously you're against civil liberties because there was no scientific basis for this. And then, of course, most importantly, free market economics.
And could you provide some insights on the methodology used by EUmatrix.eu, is to my understanding, to make this ranking of members?
Well, the way it works is that Brussels Report has compiled the votes, and then EUmatrix has, inserted the votes into their system and come up with an Excel file which can be downloaded freely on Brusselsreport.eu, where you can see how MEPs vote and how well they do. If you analyze the results, I think it's quite problematic because, for example, you see that only 20% of MEPs support free market economics, civil liberties, and subsidiarity, which is sort of support for a more decentralized European Union. Clearly, if you look at opinion polls in every single European member state, a lot more than 20% of the electorate is in favor of that. I think easily half of the electorate, and probably more, is in favor of making sure that national democracies still retain the important policy levers. I think people are broadly supportive of civil liberties and even free market economics. I think often still enjoys, thankfully, a lot of support. And this shows how the European Parliament, even if it is directly elected, it is suffering from a disconnect with the voters. I'm sure that if many voters discover that, for example, supposedly liberal politicians vote in favor of banning the combustion engine, imagine banning a technology. It's not just about favoring electric vehicles, which is bad enough. I think politicians should stay away from favoring certain technologies. but to impose an outright ban, as the EU, as the European Parliament has done on traditional cars, which are still very popular. I think many voters will say, what are they doing there in Brussels? I mean, have they completely lost any connection with their voters? So I think this is quite, disappointing. And then if you look at sort of the results of the non-ideological part, number of votes where MEPs were supporting transparency, accountability, making sure that public finances, that the public finances of the EU are sort of in order. I mean, also there you see that many MEPs, only basically 1 out of 7 members of European Parliament, they obtain a 66% score on that metric, which means that only 1 in 7 is sort of, at least for 2/3 of these, transparency votes and accountability votes, also in favor of transparency and accountability. And I think this is quite, problematic, because the European Parliament is supposed to be the institution that is, guarding and making sure that the European Commission and the EU institutions are, in control, are not out of line. So clearly, as a watchdog, the European Parliament is not fulfilling its job.
So the viewers can read more about this opinion poll on brusselsreport.eu, but could you briefly tell the viewers who are the top 3 ranking according to the results?
Well, it's good news for Sweden, because the number 1 is Charlie Weimers, together with Johan Nissinen, and the number 3 is another Swede, Peter Lundgren. So Charlie Weimers is, I think, a strong MEP from the Sweden Democrats, one of the leading centre-right MEPs in the European Parliament. Number 4 and 5 are from the Netherlands. Number 6 is an MEP from Finland. So you see that Northern Europe is strongly represented. However, I must say that when it comes to the accountability ranking, which is sort of a sub-ranking, an Italian lady, Miss Francesco Donato, has made it all the way to the top. When it comes to the sub-ranking on economics and free market economics, subsidiarity, civil liberties, a Dutch gentleman, Michiel Hoogeveen, is the number 1. But as I mentioned, this is not a partisan ranking. I think the votes that have been selected are, very sensible. And I think many people that take a look at the ranking, they probably will say, well, yeah, people should vote in favor of, for example, declaring that Russia is a terrorist state, or making sure that EU taxpayers' money does not go to Hamas to fuel hatred, or that we should not have any unscientific vaccine passes, or that when the European Union is setting up a big conference, it should be financially transparent. So these are all, I think, causes that are broadly supported in society, at least with the center-right, but many of the transparency topics are definitely also going to find support among the left-wing part of the electorate. And nevertheless, as I mentioned, only very modest support could be found for this.
Thank you, Peter Klepper, Editor-in-Chief for Riks Europe and Editor-in-Chief for Brussels Report.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.